the last speaker for the day in this room will be Alexander Franke, and he will talk about internationalization and localization, why we're the best, and why we still suck.
Yeah. So I'm Alexander Frank. Some of you, if you're maintainers, may know me as that annoying guy that says email that says, you broke the string freeze. Are you one of these guys? Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna come back to this later. But first I'm gonna define. I'm gonna define l10n and i18n. So l10n means localization, and it's the process of adapting software to a special geographical area. And it could be, usually you mean translations, but it could be more than that. It could be changing time formats, changing when there's a quote from a famous movie which is not known in this country, you have to find something else, things like that. Internationalization, that's the process of making localization possible. So that means coordinating between the teams, that means implementing a system to make your software ready to be translated, things like that. And GNOME is good at that. I'm first going to compare free software in general to proprietary software. So one of the most obvious things when you talk about free software compared to proprietary software is that you can fix bugs, and that's even more true for translations, because everyone knows their language, but not everyone knows how to code, so they can give feedback and get the fix integrated easier. And this quote from Linus Torvald is even more true in translations too, because if the code is messy, the user won't know that, but if the translation is wrong, or if there's a typo or something like that, the user will automatically notice it. So this is one of the reasons we have good quality translations in free software. Let's compare also how they work versus how we work. So usually in proprietary software, they use homegrown solutions. Everyone does their own stuff in-house, and they export to Excel files or something like that, and they send the files to translation houses. And it's not really efficient, it's not really good, because everyone has to fix the same bugs. And in free software, most of the people use getText, or for specific cases you have specific libraries, but in a given environment you have the same infrastructure for everyone. For instance, for Android apps, everyone uses the same technology. It's not getText, but it's the same for all Android applications. Yeah. So now let's compare GNOME to other free software. And I'm going to start with any random small project that's not part of a big umbrella organization. So usually what they do is the maintainer implements getText, and then they wait for people to come and to translate things. And it can be random ways. People can submit a PO file using email or on the bug tracker, but it's not really organized. Then you have some projects that are a bit more mature, and they use infrastructure for that. So they may use something like Poodle or Transifex or an external service that will gather a community of translators, and you will have the same people translate several different software which are not necessarily related. Oh, and there's also Launchpad from Canonical, which we'll talk about later, because we will see Ubuntu. So what does LibreOffice, which is one of the big players, they have a Poodle instance. So that's a web application that translators can go to, see the status of the translations, and get the PO files, update them, and upload them. But it's quite simple, and it doesn't do much more than that. Now we have Mozilla, and I think we have some Mozilla localization people in the room, so I might say something which is wrong. You are welcome to correct me. But I think that Mozilla has several tools and several ways of working depending on what you want to translate. So for instance, if it's marketing material, it's not the same as if it's Firefox. Yeah. So Poodle and Transifex and mostly Transifex
for the website stuff.
For the website.
And webmaker and the website stuff.
Do you want to just repeat that?
Yeah, I help translate apps from Mozilla Swedish, but we mostly use Transifex for like the website stuff, like webmaker and all the websites, and then we use Poodle in the Swedish team at least for like applications like Fennec and Firefox.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And what? So I never touched the Mozilla translation, but I looked it up, and what I've seen in the French team, at least, is that to be able to fix translation in Firefox, you have to go clone the Mercurial repository. You have to find the right file where the string is. You have to make a batch, upload it to Bugzilla, something like that, which is a bit cumbersome.
Kind of different teams.
Yeah, all the teams use different methodology. Okay. Then we have Ubuntu. And I'm saying Ubuntu because that's the one I know. Maybe Fedora does something similar or other distributions, but the fact about Ubuntu is that they are one of our downstreams. So they have something called Launchpad, which integrates a lot of things. And one of the things is translations. And they use that for Ubuntu-specific translations. And it's also open to anyone who wants to host software there. And it's a web application where you can do the translations online. And you can just look for one string and translate this string. And all you need is an account. And then for some software you have permissions with a team that has to review before it's pushed to the software updates. Yeah, and one of the problems with Ubuntu is that they translate things which they shouldn't translate because it's not their job. So for instance, we have GNOME translations which are done downstream in Ubuntu. We never get them because the teams don't know that they are supposed to push them upstream. Also, we have, since anyone could make a suggestion and change the translation, we have translations which are actually different in Ubuntu than in upstream GNOME or upstream anything really. So yeah, that's the state of Ubuntu. And in GNOME, three things we achieve, which I don't see as much in other projects, are quality, consistency, and coverage. And one thing to take into account is that GNOME is, well, I was about to say GNOME is huge, but Christian said yesterday in his keynote that GNOME is a massive achievement, which is more appropriate. And for instance, just for GNOME, the core stuff which we call GNOME, just for UI, we are currently at about 43K strings. And I think that's more than all of the Mozilla projects. So that's quite something. And the way we do that is using something called Damnice, which is a website which I'm going to show you.
question.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was always so curious about it. Why is it called like that?
That's a very good question. So there's a famous book named Lies, Damn Lies and Statistics, which are the three kinds of lies. And what Damn Lies does is provide statistics for the translators, and they, you know how you can say make numbers say anything. They are not always accurate. They may say something which is not the truth. Like for instance, if you look at the French translation for GNOME 3.16, it says it's at 99% because there are like 15 strings which are not translated, but that's the state of the GNOME 3.16 branch in the Git repo. That's not the state in the tables. So the released software is actually at 100%. So that's a lie. And network doesn't seem to be working. Oh. Yeah, I need to get captive browser. Oh, I'm gonna use. Yeah, what's the Wi-Fi password?
Conference.
B32.
That's correct.
Yeah, I pressed enter, but it didn't work. Yeah. Okay. So l10n.gnome.org. Yay! Oh, and it's in French. Do you want to keep it in French or should I?
No.
So maybe we have more questions while I'm setting it up.
Yeah.
Does the site just track string translations, or does it take care of things like time formatting that you mentioned as well?
Only translations.
Has that question come up before? So how do you track?
No, I don't think so.
I mean, time formats are part of glibc file,
Yeah.
right?
Did you
Like the lowest level component.
There's a question there. So yeah, I'm just gonna reply to that. So that's one of the reasons why we suck.
You might go over this later on, but one of the things I was interested in is how do you select which languages to feature? Or, for example, Spanish is very broad. There's Spanish from Spain, from Mexico, from Ecuador, from everywhere.
That's easy.
And so,
Because if you look at the page, you have themes and languages. There are two separate things. And so if you go to languages, so I don't know about Spanish, but I know about Brazilian. We have Portuguese Brazilian and and Portuguese. I mean, so yeah, these two are here. And
Spanish is, I think, one that
Spanish, I have no idea. Oh, there's Spanish, and then there's Catalan, which is here, and Catalan from Valencia. And I don't know, maybe there's another Spanish language. And if you go to the Teams page, you will find the Portuguese team, which takes care of old Portuguese. But maybe it's the same team, but maybe it's not the same people in the same team.
because we found, oh, there it is, like Mexican Spanish.
So in this case, that's a different team. But it doesn't have a coordinator, and I don't know if it's active. So maybe they should merge it with the Spanish team.
But
Are
so
you checking
anyone-
notes?
anyone can choose to create a new country language sort of a thing? And then merge it?
It has to be an ISO. You have to have an ISO code for the language,
Mhm.
and it has to be in glibc. And basically, that's it. Yeah, so it's not translated at all. And if I go to French, for instance, we are mostly translated. So everything is there. And Damnise actually is two products that have been merged. So the first one is Damnise, which does statistics, and the other one was called Vincent will kill me, right? Vertimus. And it handles workflow, and they have been merged into Damnise. So if you go to the development version, for instance, you would see that is it big enough?
You might want to increase it a bit.
Better?
Probably good.
Yeah, you will see the different modules for GNOME 318 and the current status, and you will see the workflow status. So this one has been translated. That's one of the workflow items, and everything translation related has to go through this website. And for all of our products, so that's GNOME, but that's also the GNOME websites, Damnise itself, GHBuild, anything. The video subtitles, for instance. And yeah, so you see we have so that's something that's missing from most online tools like Launchpad and Poodle and Transifex. You have a real workflow, and you cannot work on translation unless you lock it, and then you have a discussion, and we try to fix issues, and that's the whole workflow. Which is quite complex if you look at this graph, but it's not that difficult to grasp actually. So the translations start with locking the translation, then you can then when you're done you can upload the file. The file is marked as translated. If some new strings have appeared in the meantime, you can go back to the translating state. If not, you can have someone with the proofreader status reserved for proofreading, and then it's either proofread if it's okay, or it can go back. Oh, where's the? Yeah, it can go back to the review. That means the translation is not good enough, and the translator should fix a lot of things. And once the file is ready, proofread, you can mark it as ready to commit and push it to the Git repo directly from Damnise. Yeah.
What about like a glossary of terms or a style guide, voice? One of the things that we found in the Yelp documentation is that sometimes there is a mix of informal and formal and things like that. Is there a standard set of rules that translators are supposed to look over before contributing?
So obviously that's language dependent, and each team has their own.
Is that available on Damnise?
So it's linked to from Damnise, and Damnise itself doesn't host it. But if you go to the homepage of the team, you will have many information. So that's a little blog written by the coordinator. It can put anything in Markdown format here. So what I do is say what the current priorities are. Like for instance, the first sentence says that it's too early to work on 318 because the strings are going to change a lot. And it's okay for it not to be at 100%. And then after that you have the details for the page, so you have a nice picture of the coordinator. You have links to documentation for the team, so that's what we use in the French team. That's outside of the GNOME infrastructure actually, because we are groups with other groups of translators in France, and we share some things. You have links to CDAP bugs, which are related to localization and internationalization. You have a link to the mailing list, which you should subscribe to if you're joining the team. Then you have everything. And then you have the team members, which are doing an amazing job. And which are, there's a lot of them. So yeah, that's specific to teams, and for us it's on Traduc. For Spanish team, I don't know how they do it, but they have something similar. Any other questions on Damnite, the way we work, us compared to someone else? Why we don't do something? So Mozilla is going to change to Damnite, right?
I'm not the guy that decides that.
So all in all, we do a pretty good job. But we could do better. And the first thing that bugs me is that with Square maintainers, we have the string freeze, which is at the end of the release cycle. It starts at the end of the release cycle. It's the last 2 weeks, and it's meant to be for translators to be able to do that job, because they can't do it earlier. The strings change all the time. So we have the string freeze, and during the string freeze, it happens that developers push new changes to fix bugs, but that also introduces new strings which they are not supposed to do. And maybe it's because they are not well aware of the reasons of the string freeze, but they do it and they don't even notice they do it. So what happens is that the internationalization team gets a notification, and we look at the situation. Sometimes it's a false positive. It's a string that was already in the software and that wasn't marked for translation, so the developer just fixed that, and that's okay. Sometimes it's a real case, and then what we do is send an email to the maintainer and tell them, you did that, that breaks the string freeze. You have some options which are ask for an exception. You have to give motivation for that to be. You can either revert the change if it's not that important, or you can, basically that's it. And that scares maintainers, and usually they are really, they are panicking, and they say, oh, I'm so sorry, and I will just unmark the string and it will stay in the software, but you won't have to translate it, which is even worse. Or they don't understand the reasons, so we need to find a way to be better at that, and I'm open to suggestions. We break stuff. Translators sometimes have to work with, for instance, XML files, and they could do something like a missing closing tag or things like that, and then so for the translation file, that's fine. People don't notice that something's wrong. But then when you generate the localized XML, it breaks. It can also be, for instance, desktop files with keywords which are separated by semicolon, thanks. And if you're missing one, the final semicolon, then the build of software fails. So we need to do something about it. We need to have checks or a way to prevent that. We could share more between the different teams, because some of the teams are really efficient in checking quality. For instance, the Spanish team, they run a lot of tools to make sure that the terms are the same in all of our software, that there's no grammar mistake or spelling mistake, and we don't use that for all teams, and we should. We should also have a service which allows to look for substrings in all of our software and to check how it's translated in other modules, so that we use the same term everywhere. And we don't have that currently. What we can do is do a giant grep on all the Git repositories, but that means you have to have all the repositories. So yeah, we need that. We do some things manually, and we shouldn't, like checking for the XML breaks. We have someone from Spain who does that from time to time. He has a script who does that, but he does that, and it's only when he does that that we have that. So we don't know of the breaks when they happen. So we need help to improve all of this. We also need help from people who want to write code, because most of the translators are not developers, so they can do it themselves. For instance, if you know Django and want to help, Danice is written in Django, so that's one of the things you could help with. What I would like to see too is integration in GNOME Builder for developers, so that they can see the state of translations for their modules. So it could grab statistics from Danice and show if they need to do something about it. A GNOME Builder should be able to also to implement getText on its own. Like you push a button and voila, your software is ready to be translated. So if you want to work on GNOME Builder, that's one area where you can help to. We have a wiki, and we have some documentations for developers, and it's not up to date, and sometimes you don't notice that things are said in a weird way, or that you don't understand if you're not already a translator. So we need developers to come to us and to help us fix it. And maybe you have some other ideas, so I'm listening. Maybe you have something in Mozilla or elsewhere that we should use.
Well, so TransFX just added a feature where you can add your, again, the glossary of terms, so that it auto suggests things, and that's something that we found super useful for maintaining that standard, which you mentioned was kind of hard to keep right now.
It has to be, it's something that's language related, so it has to be done by the people
In the team.
right now. Yeah. But it could be on Danice. But then in the French case, for instance, the GNOME translators work with other translators, so we have a glossary which is centralized for all French translations. So yeah, it couldn't really be on Danice unless everyone has comes to their mice. But we could have, I don't know, maybe a protocol or something that allows to query a glossary which is elsewhere and integrate it on their mice. But we need developers to do that.
Yes, Alex said this is done by individual teams, and you can of course get support for translation memory or glossaries in your localization software that you use as a desktop application. And that's what most non-translation teams do. They install their own translation editors on their system so they translate the strings locally, and then only after they have finished the translation, they are uploaded via the web interface to the device. But we have I remember having a conversation about implementing editor support to the device like 2 years ago in GUADEC in Brno. So I mean, there are teams. If I remember correctly, there was a Chinese team member who suggested we implement this into the MI, so it is easier for translators to use this. For some of them, this might be a bottleneck actually, that they have to install individual translation software on their own machines.
So, you mentioned maybe adding some functionality into Builder to help people see how translations are coming along for their apps. One thing that we found kind of difficult when translating for a new app is that it's hard to see the context. So, for example, you see a sentence and you don't know if it's a feminine case or a masculine case or something like that.
Yeah.
Is there a tool that you guys use, or how does a translator know what context they're supposed to translate?
That's a good question, and that's something I didn't think of when I was making the slides. But actually, we do have such tool, which is called Decode, and it's made by a French guy of the Ubuntu translation team. And basically, what it does is render GLADE files with the translation. GLADE files are the UI definition files. So it's I could go to that if I remember the address. Yeah. So for instance, let's take something that has text. Any suggestion? GNOME calculator, is it in there? No, it's yeah. Where is it in italic? I don't know. Anyway, you can then choose the UI file you want to see. So let's show the C local. I don't know, we'll see. Yeah, there are. There should be. But yeah, okay, so that's and I think it's using Broadway to do that, which is a cool way to. So yeah, if we change it to, which one do you want to see?
French.
Yeah. That's why I asked, because if I was the one choosing, it would be French. Ta-da! So yeah, you can check. The issue is that currently it's running on a guy's server somewhere, and the source is available, so we could install it on our infrastructure. But someone is running it, for instance, for now, and the modules available in the list are only the ones that we asked him to import because we wanted to see them. So it's a manual process, and yeah, really it should be on the GNOME servers, and we should add all the modules there, and this would be awesome. Another solution is to actually build the software, which it can be cumbersome for someone with just a translator.
That's actually sorry. Something for the for Yelp. We use, we translate in the Mallard docs, and we'll check after each translation to make sure that we didn't break something by building the help center, after each page. I don't know how feasible that is to do for individual.
So for documentation,
Yeah, like a.
yeah, documentation is a bit different from UI, but for documentation, there's a script passed from translators to translators that yeah, we suck, don't we? That creates the pages files so that you have the documentation, so that you can read the documentation at XML files or PO files. Yeah, so that's the list of bugs in Damlice. As you can see, we actually don't have so many real bugs because they get fixed really quickly by Claude. So the dark black ones are the real bugs, and the red one, and the other ones are feature requests. So yeah, Django developers in the room. Yeah. Don't be shy. Any other question or suggestion? Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Are there any automated quality checks on the English messages?
On what?
English messages.
Oh. Huh.
Define quality.
That's a good question.
Basically, WebLate, which is another web translation tool, has the following rule. It has some automated checks.
Spelling, grammar.
Yes,
Yeah.
and
Well,
it also checks some things related to format strings and so on. And it has the following rule: if many translations of the same string have some problems, then there is probably a problem with the original string.
okay, that's good. That's something we should have.
Sorry, I have a stupid question, but it's killing me. There is 2 languages in the list you showed with code FO and FOO. Is that a real ISO code for language?
In what?
In the list of languages, there is languages with the code FOO, foo. Is that a real language code?
On the list of languages that are available on
Yeah, on
Damlice?
Damlice.
So FO is something. So that seems to be a real language since there's a coordinator. And
But what
some-
about the next one? Foo. What about foo? Is that real language?
let me check.
Probably because it doesn't instance, it doesn't look like language code.
Yeah, that seems to be a test one.
Too bad.
I don't know if that's intended to be here because we have test infrastructure in Damlice. If you're a developer, you can actually have fake translations and fake teams and everything. We have a basic data set so that your test instance is actually not empty, and that's where it belongs. So I will check what that is. Thanks. We have 2 minutes. So maybe we want to get to break early, I don't know. So what was your point? So,
I asked it already anyway. I was asking about things that are not just language issues, but you mentioned numbers and units and things like that. If that's just taken care of in the same process, the same workflow, or
Yeah,
you just
we
count
use
on the team being on top of it.
I'm not asking about the internal representation. I'm
Yeah.
asking about the UI.
So I don't know, like you mentioned movie quotes. How do you handle that? You know, if the movie quote works or you
yeah.
have to change it.
So for
That's not-
movie quotes, for instance, we usually the translator tries to think of something and he comes up with something, or if he doesn't know of the original reference, he asks the other guys in the team, and when he has a suggestion, he puts it in the file. So that's the usual workflow, and then the proofreader may say, "I don't get it," or "That's a good catch," or yeah, I don't know. So yeah. And for the time formats, one of the reasons we suck is that we usually have to translate all the variants when. So for instance, if you have a clock and the user may be able to choose several, like the GNOME clock, you can choose between the 24-hour time format and the 12-hour time format, and we have to translate it for GNOME shell. And then if someone else uses the same two systems, we have to translate it again, and that made it some inconsistencies.
So officially we're out of time, a minute ago. But did we have a break right now? So if people still want to continue, what?
I have one
Yeah,
more
we
slide.
have a break now, so whoever
So-
wants to leave.
Yeah, if you want to discuss this, we have a buff tomorrow in the morning. You're more than welcome to attend. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Get some Swedish candy gift. Thank you.